This is a facial recognition system I built with publicly available information. It was so easy to build something, so accurate, it's scary. I kept hearing about police using facial recognition, but it was all abstract. Like all of these stories from just the last couple of days about our largest companies and law enforcement departments teaming up. You hear about it, but you don't really see what it can do. I wanted a bit more of an understanding, so I built one for myself. So out of fairness, I decided I was going to focus the tool that I had been building on the people who were focused their tools on me. I set out to see if I could use facial recognition to reliably identify police officers in videos that I found on the internet. And as fast as this guy can take a picture, we see who he is. Turns out that it's just as easy for us to use facial recognition to identify police officers as it is for them to use it to identify us. The basic level, it just takes a face and turns it into a bunch of numbers and does some matching. The real power I found was when we used it on video, because then we were just looking at one picture, we were looking at a lot of pictures, and we were able to make a much more confident match. In this example, we had to process almost 100 images before we were finally able to get a definitive result about the identity of this subject. The part that surprised me wasn't that it worked, was how well it worked. At that point, I realized it was far beyond theory. If I could build this in a couple of weeks, the stuff the police had access to had to be way more powerful. A fact that was confirmed as soon as this document was linked about the power of the mobile Fortify app. Not only can they use it for facial recognition, but if it doesn't come up with a match, they can take pictures of your fingerprints and get a match that way. Everything here is based on publicly available stuff. My goal wasn't to build a surveillance tool. My goal was to understand what they were using and what I could do with that same kind of power. But identifying someone is just one part of it. What happens when you are able to tie information to a specific person pretty reliably is where things get really interesting. So I just showed you how I built a system that can do facial recognition on police.
Seriously?
Photo shoot, guys.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's a photo shoot.
If I see it on the internet, we'll be talking.
But that's actually the least interesting part. Because once you can identify someone, connecting things like where they show up and when becomes really easy. At first, this just looks like isolated events, but when you start to zoom out, you start to see connections that you didn't see before. This can change how you understand what's happening. Instead of seeing distinct moments, you start seeing pattern. But there is a pretty big problem. You see, this system only works with data. If you don't have enough data, these police are practically invisible. So the real question becomes, how do you actually collect that data reliably? If we don't have a way to collect data in an area, there is no visibility. That means that a lot of what's going on out there, you just don't see. So I built a way to collect that data automatically. This is the Authority Alert camera. You mount it to any standard camera mount, you give it electricity through a USB-A, you connect it to your Wi-Fi, and then it just runs. When a police officer or police car shows up in frame, it detects them and sends you an alert. At the same time, it logs that activity into the system at large. Right now, this only works if enough people participate. If we can't get enough of these cameras out there, this system doesn't really exist. So we're offering some early deployment pricing. You can get up to 30% off using this code. So if you want access to this and you want to help build this system, you can pick one up at shop.thepolicerecord.com. The more cameras there are, the more visibility everybody gets.